BMW motorcycles. Now, I know that there are quite a lot of divided opinions when it comes to BMW motorcycles. Today, I'm going to give my 2 cents on whether or not I like BMW bikes, what my experiences have been with BMW bikes, and kind of like, well, when should you buy one and when shouldn't you buy one? So my experience on BMW motorcycles is fairly limited. My experiences are actually, well, I've not ridden a BMW motorcycle yet. So I can't really comment on the experience that the bikes actually give. However, what I can comment on are some certain reliability issues. Yes, a lot of them are anecdotal. However, even my wife's dad has had BMW bikes. He still owns BMW bikes, and he has had problems with every single one, despite the fact that he doesn't really ride them all that much. So, well, I thought what we're going to do today is we'll have a look at ChatGPT and we'll ask the question, why motorcyclists, or do motorcyclists, hate BMW bikes? And then we'll kind of go into a few reasons why I actually think a lot of motorcyclists don't hate BMW motorcycles, but I think there is a right type of person for buying one and the wrong type of person for buying one. Despite the fact that BMW motorcycles are, or have a somewhat reputation for unreliability, and I know that a lot of people have kind of praised BMW cars in the past for being these bulletproof things, but actually that's not the case these days either. They're just so overly complex. A lot of the time the engineering is so unnecessary that when it comes to fixing them, it can be extremely difficult and extremely expensive, and that's why cars like that, cars like BMWs, end up going down in value so much. And I think the same also applies with BMW motorcycles as well, to some extent. A lot of the things that BMW kind of implements on their bikes is proprietary. So anything you try to do yourself, if you try to do it yourself, it will probably end up causing errors. ECU will flag up errors and things like that. Even if you try just charging the battery on your own, it can be a difficult prospect. But let's have a look and see what ChatGPT says about BMW motorcycles. So all I typed in is, why do motorcyclists hate BMW motorcycles? And it replied saying, motorcyclists' opinions about BMW motorcycles can vary widely. There are several reasons why some might express strong dislike criticism. Here are some common points of contention. Cost. BMW motorcycles are often more expensive than other brands. This high cost includes both purchase price and the cost of parts and maintenance, which can be a barrier for some riders. Complexity and maintenance. BMW bikes are known for their advanced technology and engineering, which can make them more complex and harder to maintain. Some motorcyclists simply prefer simpler machines that are easier to work on themselves. The thing is, I find that a lot of the time, BMW make things complicated, not because they have to, but because they want to. It's a little bit like Apple in a way, where Apple products, again, are fantastic devices in a lot of ways, but I would never own one myself because it's like a walled garden, I think is how it's kind of described. So it's very restrictive, and there's not a lot of customizing that you can do with it to make it your own device. You either have to use it the way Apple intended or don't use it at all. Simple as that. And of course, maintenance on those things, trying to fix them, next to impossible. I know that a lot of kind of mobile phone manufacturers are kind of going the same direction, but when it comes to computers, laptops, MacBooks, things like that, Apple still have that same kind of ideology with their MacBooks, despite the fact that they're really good devices, really good pieces of kit. But it's not like having this kind of machine here where you can tinker with anything, you can do anything you want with it. And I know that's kind of like, so some people like that aspect, other people don't, but it always adds complexity and it always adds reliability issues. BMW, half the things that BMW do when it comes to their motorcycle designs are not necessary. Tell that to any other manufacturer in the world, including brands like Harley Davidson and Ducati and Aprilia. You ask them why BMW do certain things, and everyone else would do it totally differently and still achieve the same results. So there is no reason for it apart from they don't want the riders themselves to be touching the bikes. And there wouldn't be an issue if nothing went wrong with BMW bikes, but Unfortunately, it happens more regularly than I care to mention. So the next point here, reliability issues. While BMW motorcycles are generally known for their durability, there have been reports of reliability issues, particularly with certain models. This can lead to frustration among owners who expect a premium product to have fewer problems. This is absolutely true. You pay an absolute fortune for BMW bikes, you expect to get premium quality stuff, but it looks like even BMW are taking shortcuts, cutting too many corners with their bikes, at least with certain models. Brand perception. BMW as a brand has a reputation for being upscale and sometimes elitist. This can create a negative perception among riders who view motorcycling as a more down-to-earth activity. Riding experience. Some riders simply don't enjoy the riding experience provided by BMW motorcycles. This could be due to the bike's ergonomics, performance characteristics, or overall feel compared to other brands that they prefer. I mean, yeah, you can't really claim that as a criticism because everyone's desires from a motorcycle, what everyone expects out of a motorcycle is different. So this isn't an issue for me. Everyone's riding experience is their own riding experience. If that's what they want and that's what they're looking for, all power to them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying a BMW motorcycle because of the experience, and there's also nothing wrong with not enjoying a BMW bike because of the experience. Community and culture. Motorcycling has a strong community aspect, and some riders may feel that culture around BMW bikes doesn't align with their own values or preferences. This could be due to perceived attitudes of BMW riders or the company's marketing and image. That's quite an interesting point there. I never really considered that before. Because, I mean, motorcyclists, we might have opinions on what kind of brands we like and what brands we don't like and things like that. But for the most part, we're more about the participation aspect of things. So the fact you're actually on a motorcycle and you are riding and you're taking part is more important than the actual bike that you're riding. You can have a lot of criticism around Chinese bikes. You guys have heard my criticism on Chinese bikes before, but it doesn't change the fact that if this is the only way that someone can get involved in bikes, great. That's what I want to see. So I don't care what kind of motorcycle it is, as long as it's, built safely to some extent. It doesn't have to be overly reliable. And we'll come to that point a little bit later on, because a lot of people, including myself, even though we've had these experiences or have heard these anecdotal kind of descriptions of reliability issues with BMW, there's a counterpoint to that. But the last point is historical preferences and biases. Some motorcyclists may have a long-standing preference for certain brands such as Harley-Davidson, Honda or Yamaha, and may view BMW as an outsider. This can be based on personal experiences, regional trends, or even brand loyalty passed down through the generations. It's important to note that not all motorcyclists share these views, and BMW has a large and loyal following who appreciate the brand's engineering, performance, and innovation. Very, very interesting. And I think that is quite a big point, is that even me, I have a certain bias towards certain motorcycle brands. I've always been a Kawasaki guy. Even when I was a kid, I saw a Kawasaki Ninja or something like that, and I was like, wow, I've got to have one of those. And now I do. Now I'm able to live that dream. Although it doesn't stop me from wanting to have a go on other things. It doesn't stop me from buying Honda or buying BMW. It won't stop me from buying any of these other brands. But scratching that itch is one of those things that I've always kind of wanted to do. And the fact that I've been in this privileged position to have bought and ridden Kawasaki motorcycles for most of my riding career, now I do have some more options out there that I can explore, hopefully in the near future. I'm looking at cruiser bikes now, which I've never considered before, but since riding the Vulcan S from Kawasaki, I've just been like, wow, I need to have one of these bikes. It's so fun. I really didn't expect it to be as fun as it was. But it is true that people do have brand biases and brand preferences. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. The only thing is that I would encourage everyone to explore what is outside of that brand. And as much as you might trust a particular brand, you might really love their products, you really shouldn't narrow your focus towards a bike that brand has, whatever those motorcycles that brand has. You should always try and explore what other brands have. And it's quite difficult, actually, when you have someone who doesn't really know about bikes, and they're trying to get involved in it. They're trying to do their direct access, so they want to get involved in bikes. And the first bikes that they're looking at is a BMW. I can't help but say, look, you probably shouldn't look at a BMW first. By all means, later on in the future, maybe go ahead and have a look at them then. But as a first motorcycle, it might not be the best experience. It might be a positive riding experience, but then a little bit later on, you might get stung with reliability issues and all that stuff. So stick with a brand, or stick with a particular bike anyway, that is reliable and has that reputation for reliability, and you don't have to worry about it. And that's not something that, because you know what I mean, it's something that can put people off, isn't it? If you get a particular motorcycle and you don't really know much about bikes, and you're spending every other month fixing it, well, that's not exactly a positive experience, and it might put you off continuing riding bikes in the future, if you know what I mean. But it is quite difficult. If someone has this idea in their head about a particular bike or a particular brand, it's very difficult to take them off of that idea. And even though that's not something I like to do, because I mean, every brand, including BMW, have a lot to offer motorcyclists, there is a right time and a right place for these kinds of bikes. And there's a wrong time or place for these kinds of bikes. So when it comes to the whole reliability aspects of BMW motorcycles, they are quite well documented, and I'm not going to turn around and say that BMW bikes are reliable, because objectively they are not, at least compared to the Japanese brands and even the Italian brands. You don't hear the same issues coming out with Italian brands that you do with BMW. And maybe that's kind of more of like a shock factor, because you expect, German engineering to be really good and robust. But unfortunately, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And even in their cars, as I mentioned earlier, their cars also have reliability issues right now. So if you're looking at buying a German car, well, do your research and make sure that it is all right. When it comes to reliability, it doesn't really matter if you're rich. If you have a lot of money, it doesn't matter what bikes you buy. Because, yeah, okay, something might go wrong with it. You can just send it off to a mechanic and the mechanic can fix it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And so, you don't even have to be moderately rich, just decently well off, and you wouldn't have any problems with a BMW bike. But just as a kind of point of reference here, so my wife's dad, he had this BMW, I can't remember, God, I keep forgetting what model it is, but he had this BMW, it was like a big Tourer, and it had an issue with the gearbox, and it was going to cost a fortune to fix. And not only that, they didn't make those gearboxes anymore for that particular model of bike, so they had to get a newer gearbox from one of the newer generations of that bike and adapt it to his one. And that was going to cost £6,000 or £7,000. And bearing in mind, he probably paid maybe about 10 grand for the bike. Maybe a bit more, but still, a significant bill. Fair play to BMW though, they forked out for half of the cost. So I've got to give them that. But issues with gearboxes, and this is a fairly new bike, this is from 2015, it's not an old bike in the slightest, and it hasn't got a lot of mileage. So for a bike that is designed to be a tourer, that is designed to do a lot of miles, and the gearbox goes. Gearboxes, they're solid pieces of metal. Gearboxes should never break unless the brand cheaps out on the metals that they're using. All right, it's simple as that. Now, of course, from my wife's dad's point of view, it doesn't really matter as much because, well, he's retired, he's quite well off, he can afford to buy the gearbox and get it fixed. It's not an issue for him. If it was me, I'd be having a heart attack, because for God's sake, that's more than the cost of a bike for me. Even at half price, £3,000, that's the cost of a whole new motorcycle for me. I paid 1,500 quid for my ZX9R. You know what I mean? You can buy a whole bike for that amount or less and not have gearbox issues. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, yeah, if you're pretty well off, it doesn't really matter. You go ahead and buy your Ducatis, your Aprilias, and they might have fantastic experiences, riding experiences. I mean, the other day when I was at the dealership, it's one of the sales reps was like, yeah, because it's a Japanese, a Yamaha and Kawasaki, and they were like, yeah, these Japanese bikes are all really reliable, but there's something about the Italian bikes that just makes them so much more exciting. And yeah, fair enough. That maybe there is. Maybe they are superior in terms of riding experiences. Maybe they are superior than the Japanese brands. But some people prefer a little bit of reliability as well as a decent riding experience. I mean, one of these days we'll find out. We'll see what the riding experience is like on BMW bikes and whether or not it's worth that risk, because if you buy Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, you can pretty much guarantee that it's not going to have too many issues, especially if it is less than 10 years old. But you can't guarantee that on a BMW bike. So does the riding experience make up for that level of risk that you might be taking? That'll be a very interesting thing to find out, and hopefully I'll get to have a go on one in the near future. But at the end of the day, buy whatever motorcycle you like. But if it's your first, your second, maybe even your third bike, please consider buying something that is known for its reliability, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just focus 100% on the experience, because everyone prefers riding their bikes than wrenching on them. Everyone prefers riding the bikes than fixing them up. Simple as that. That's what they're for. But I know that that's not the case for everyone. I know that a lot of people, they do like working on their bikes, and that's part of the enjoyment of owning a motorcycle, is working on it. I get it. But if it's your first bike, second, third bike, unless you are immensely rich, I say immensely rich, well off, should I say, I wouldn't consider a BMW bike. But if you are in that position, honestly, go for it. Why not? You don't need someone like me saying to you about what bikes you can buy and what you can't buy. If you have the budget, it doesn't really matter how reliable or unreliable it is, because you'll probably have enough to get it fixed, enough money to get it fixed anyway. So at that point, the reliability of things isn't as much of a big deal. It's a little bit like Land Rover, Range Rover. The cars are notoriously unreliable. And they have issues all the time with really expensive parts, and it costs thousands of pounds or dollars to fix. But who are the people that drive around Land Rovers and Range Rovers? Pretty rich people. You know what I mean? And at that point, it doesn't matter. So to be fair, it does get to a point where if it has to go into the garage every other month for another issue, that's a little bit over the top, even for a rich person, because it's so inconvenient. But if it goes wrong every couple of years or so, not a big deal. It's absolutely fine, and they probably don't even notice it on their bank balance, so it's not really a big deal. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting how, ChatGPT, the reason why I decided to use this instead of doing the research myself on articles and things like that is because it does condense down the information into some nice, easy to read packages for you guys, and I don't have to spend ages reading all these articles and going through forums and things like that. And the problem is as well, you go through forums and it's just like every bike is the worst bike on the planet if you go through forums sometimes. So yeah, using ChatGPT I thought was going to be an interesting take on this whole BMW thing. But I am not against BMW motorcycles, and I'm not against BMW as a brand, but they're not a brand that I will be buying myself in the near future. I may at some point later on in my life, I don't know, but they are not a brand that I would personally buy, because I do care about reliability, and the less money I have to spend on maintaining the bikes, the better. All right? We have 4 bikes in this household between me and my wife. So maintenance on those bikes can become an issue if they're going wrong every year. And where here in the UK you've got to do MOTs and things like that. The ZX9R just come back from its MOT and it had a head bearing issue. So they had to replace the head bearing. I didn't even know that was an MOT failure, because people in the United States, riders in the United States, they don't care. It doesn't affect the handling all that much. It doesn't affect the steering all that much. So who cares? But here in the UK, it is more of an issue, things like that. So, and that cost me 200 quid. So yeah, when you think about it like that, it does become a bit of an issue. If it's just one bike, well, I suppose it's not a big deal. But for me, it's a little bit of a different kettle of fish. And I know that a lot of motorcycle enthusiasts, they like to have more than one bike around. So that is another thing to consider, is the maintenance cost every single year of multiple bikes. Well, would you prefer bikes that are a little bit more reliable and you don't have to maintain them as often, or you don't have to spend money as often trying to fix them up? I think it's worth it. At least right now, in the position that I'm in right now, it's worth it having bikes that I know are reliable and I know that I can trust. And if something does go wrong and I have to fix it, it's not going to be as expensive as a BMW. So that's the position I'm in right now. But yeah, maybe in 5-10 years' time, it'll be a little bit different and I'll be able to get whatever bikes I like, and it doesn't matter so much on maintenance. I don't know. Fingers crossed. I hope one day that is the case and I don't have to worry about it, because that's the only thing that holds me back from buying and riding BMW bikes, is the fact that they do have this reliability issue, and I don't really fancy getting involved in that. It's difficult. I know. To be fair to BMW, I know it's difficult to shake off something like that. But if this was happening to bikes in the 2010s or the 2000s, mid 2000s, fine, I get that. But this isn't. This is happening to bikes right now. They're still having reliability issues right now with their bikes. But I hope one day BMW can sort themselves out, and I hope they don't cheap out on things so much, and I hope that they kind of go back to more simple designs rather than, bikes like the G310. It's a really simple bike. It's not over-engineered, and it's simple to work on. I think you can work on it yourselves as the riders. I don't think there are any issues there on that. But then you get to some of the bigger bikes and it's a totally different story. So I hope that BMW go more that route, because it keeps it easier for them manufacturing wise. They can keep things nice and simple, and simplicity means reliability, doesn't it? All right, that's why some of these bikes from the 90s are still going. Most of them are Japanese, because they are simple. They are simple machines. Simple means better, means longer lasting, means more reliable. But anyway, everyone, there you have it. That's my take on BMW motorcycles. And if you are looking to buy one, don't worry about it. Go ahead and buy one. But just go into it understanding that you're probably going to have some problems with the bike. All right? And remember, there are lots of other options out there aside from BMW. Everything that BMW do, there is another motorcycle from another manufacturer that does a similar kind of thing, and maybe even does it better, and it's more reliable, and it's cheaper, and easier to maintain, cheaper to service. All right, there is probably something out there that can give you a similar, if not the same experience as the BMW would, but not with all the strings attached, if you know what I mean. But you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below, as always. If you have owned and ridden BMW bikes, what do you think? Is this true? Have you had issues with BMW bikes yourselves, or is this kind of more overblown because you expect BMW to be better, but actually it's not quite as great as everyone expects it to be? Well, that might well be the case. So you guys let me know down in the comment section. As always, go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our content going forward. And we'll catch you all in the next video, everyone. Take care. Ride safe.